Hi, I'm here with jazz saxophonist Simon Spillett. Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Lovely to meet you here in Swansea. How has it been so far?
Well, it's always nice when I come to Swansea. I'm always guaranteed a good audience and a nice band to play with, and I'm enjoying it. We're halfway through the gig, and if the first half is anything to go by, we're going to have a swinging evening.
Excellent. Can you tell me how you got started playing the saxophone?
I come from a musical family. My father is a trombone player, my mother played the piano, and my brother plays guitar. So there's a lot of music in the family going back generations, and I grew up with jazz around the house. My dad had a great jazz record collection, so it was there really from day one. And I played a couple of other instruments before the saxophone. Played the trombone and the trumpet for a while, and then took up the saxophone when I was in my teens.
Mm-hmm. Did you study it then? Did you go to music college?
No, I never went to music college. I taught myself initially by trying to play along with records, which is great. I used to put on really complicated records, and it used to mess me up a bit. And then when I was 18, I got some lessons from Vic Ash, who's one of the saxophone players in the BBC Big Band. And I studied with him for about 2.5 years. And that was really it. That was kind of the foundations. And I was doing gigs with all kinds of bands. And I turned professional at the age of 21. It wasn't all jazz. It was a lot of blues and function bands and big bands and rock bands, all kinds of things. I played all kinds of gigs. And that's really where I learnt my trade on, playing gigs.
Wow. So who have you played with?
I suppose the sort of famous ones in the jazz world would be people like Sir John Dankworth, Tina May, Alan Barnes, Clark Tracy. Those kind of top-level British guys. Internationally, I've worked with the great American jazz vocalist John Hendricks, who I was very pleased to work with last year at Ronnie Scott's. And I've also done a few pop things as well. I've worked with Mick Hucknall and Charlene Spiteri and Will Young and people like that as well.
What was Mick Hucknall like?
He was great. We did a thing with him with the big band at Ronnie Scott's for the 50th anniversary last year, and he came in. He just sang one song, so we didn't really have much to do with him, but he came in and he sang Lush Life by Billy Strayhorn, which is one of my favourite tunes, so that was nice.
How did he sing it?
Very well, actually. He's a great admirer of jazz musicians, and he's a great jazz fan, and his presence there, I think, probably brought a few people in who might not have come into a jazz club, so that was good.
Wow. So you said that you've won some awards?
I have, yeah. Well, I won the BBC Jazz Award for Rising Star in 2007, which was as much of a surprise to me as it was to everyone else. I sort of came from out of nowhere to win that. I was very pleased about that. And then last year I won Jazz Journal Magazine's Jazz Album of 2009, which was good because I beat a lot of very healthy competition to win that. It was the critics had all been asked to vote for their favourite album, and mine came out on top, which I'm very pleased about, but slightly incredulous about. There were some other great albums in the poll. People like Stan Tracy were in the poll, Alan Barnes, Norma Winston, some very good competition, but I came out on top, so I'm very pleased about that.
Well done.
Thank you.
Brilliant. So do you have any albums out?
At the moment, I'm in the process of sorting out recording my next quartet album. The first album that I made, introducing Simon Spillett, that sold out quite quickly. It was a bestseller for the label that it was on, Woodville Records. So I was very pleased about that, and so was Woodville's boss, Alan Barnes. It was one of his bestsellers. At the moment, I'm still flogging to death the album Sienna Red, which was the album that won the Jazz Award for last year. It's an album with my quartet with John Christensen on piano, Andy Kleindert on bass, and Spike Wells on drums. And on that, we play a lot of material associated with Tubby Hayes.
So if people want to buy it, if they haven't already, where can they go?
Oh, you can buy it through my website. Just look at www.simonspillett.com and contact me through that, and I can send it to you direct with a signature if you want.
Wow, signed album, and then flog it on eBay.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I remember when my first album came out, it sounds really strange to say this, but you do get used to people coming up and saying, can you sign it at the end of gigs? Something that, never ceases to amaze me, really. But there was one guy, and he was there with a queue of people who were asking for albums to be signed. I started to take the wrapping off the album. He said, no, don't sign it. It devalues it when you sell it on. So obviously one of my biggest fans, that one. Yeah. I know. Yeah, some people.
Can you tell me, what would you say would be your highlight of your career so far?
Oh, there have been so many. I mean, there's a highlight every time I sort of take to the stage with people that I've always admired. One of the nice things about working on the British jazz scene is I've actually got to work with a lot of the surviving giants of the great era of British jazz in the 1950s and 60s, people that I idolised as a child, people like John Dankworth, for example. There have been so many highlights. I mean, working at Ronnie Scott's club is always nice. Working there on Sunday, we're doing a little bit of filming there for the BBC. But there are all kinds. I mean, sometimes you get a real goosebump moment, like when John Hendricks, the American vocalist, we were working with him with the big band at Ronnie's last year. That was something, because he was someone I heard on records, on my dad's records when I was a kid, and he was lovely, and that was a real kind of like working with a giant. Wonderful. That was a real buzz. But all kinds of things, winning the award and appearing on the radio and playing with the BBC Big Band was a great thrill, and playing with the quartet at festivals. Yeah, it's always there's always something nice around the corner in this business, I think.
Yeah.
It keeps it very interesting.
So those people, like you said, you taught yourself.
Yeah.
Well, how did you get over the nerves? I mean, do you ever get over it?
I think the thing is, there's a difference really between nerves, as in the sort of nerves that a child would get when he's going for his grade 1 piano exam, and the kind of nerves which are like adrenaline. You still get that, particularly if it's a big gig, if it's something where you're working with the right people and you really want it to work well. You get nerves to a certain degree. You're not shaking with fear and you can't play your instrument, anything like that. You do get over it. And again, a lot of that is just knowing your craft and knowing what you're doing. Once you know what you're doing, you can fall back on it. It sounds funny considering that jazz is improvisation, but if you know your instrument and you know the pieces that you're playing, there's always something to fall back on, even when the inspiration isn't necessarily there.
So what would be your advice to young, aspiring saxophone players?
Practice, practice, practice. Don't let anyone put you off. Buy as many records as you can. Spend all your money on records and saxophone reeds. Go out and hear as many gigs as possible. Play in every kind of band, whether it's a folk band or a soul band or a big band or pop band, reggae, whatever. Play with all kinds of people, all different abilities. Stay focused and don't let anybody put you off, because you'll get there if you really want to do it. I mean, I wasn't a late starter when I started playing the saxophone, but it took a while for my career to get together. So I think I'm probably a good example of someone who, wasn't an overnight sensation.
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
That's all right. You can ask that. I'm not going to tell you, but you can ask me. I'm 35 now, and I've been playing professionally since I was 21.
Oh, that's not bad going.
No, it's all right. Sometimes it seems longer than it is, but most of the time it's still a thrill to play with the right people.
Well, they say you get better when you get older.
Yeah, I think all jazz musicians seek to improve what they do. I'm never happy with what I do. There are rare occasions when I think, well, that sounded quite like what I hear in my head, but there's always room for improvement. And the nice thing about this business is if you're working with people who've been playing 50, 60 years, and some of the guys that I work with have been playing that long, they always strive to improve whenever they play. When they get on the bandstand, it's kind of like, right, we're still working at this. They never get tired of it. And that's very inspiring for someone like me, who's a reasonably young jazz musician. But think of the musicians who are coming up who are 16, 17. They can go out and see people who've been playing their whole lifetime who still give it 100%. And that is inspiring.
So what would be your goals for the future?
A nice car, cottage by the sea. My goals for the future, I just want to improve as a musician. I want to reach the standard, or something approaching the standard of the people I admire. I want to continue to work with the right kind of musicians who inspire me, and musicians who I want to be associated with. I'd like to record an album that I'm happy with. One's never happy with what you've recorded. There's always things that can be better. I'd like to come up with something on a record which I can feel proud of, just to improve and keep busy, to keep touring around and playing with the right people. That's the main thing. I want to just be a musician.
Yeah, so you mentioned that cottage by the sea.
Oh, I don't know about a cottage by the sea. I'm thinking more of a sort of inner city penthouse, actually, or something more swanky. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, people often joke about jazz and the sort of privations of it. And it's, if you go into jazz, you know the joke about how do you make $1 million out of jazz?
Oh, yeah.
Well, first you start with 2 million. Well, it's always going to be a little bit of a stretch economically, I think, unless you're one of those people that are lucky to get popular. I mean, someone like Jamie Cullum got very popular, Diana Krall, people like that, who get a mainstream audience following. It's always a bit of a struggle, but I'm comfortable, let's say that, and I'm not looking around for buying big expensive cars and yachts and aeroplanes. I can see how the pop stars do it, but that's not what you go into jazz for. If you go into jazz to make money, you've gone into it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's very true.
I just like to say, this interview that we've done is at Swansea Jazzland, and I have to say, every time I've come down here, I've had a good gig. I've enjoyed the play, I've enjoyed the musicians I've worked with, met some great people who are very enthusiastic in the audience. It's one of the nicest clubs that I play at across the whole of the jazz scene. I always look forward to it when I come here, and I suppose this is an indirect plug for the club. Dave Cottle does a great job, club, and long may it continue, because we need places like this to play. We really do.
Well, thank you very much, Simon. Good luck with the rest of the gig. Are you playing anywhere else?
Oh, I was in Wrexham last night. Someone had to be. And Swansea tonight, and then the next gig I've got is at Ronnie Scott's at the weekend. So as you can tell, I'm traversing the highways and the byways of this small island.
Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure, thank you.